In 1984, the NBA held one of the most famous drafts in basketball history, featuring legends such as Hakeem Olajuwon, Michael Jordan, and Charles Barkley. The course of basketball history hinged on a coin flip between the Portland TrailBlazers and the Houston Rockets for the first overall pick. Houston won the coin flip and selected Hakeem Olajuwon, a dominant center from the University of Houston. Portland, with the second pick, famously passed on North Carolina shooting guard Michael Jordan and selected Kentucky center Sam Bowie instead, despite his injury history. The question we pose today is, what if the Blazers had won the coin flip in 1984? This alternate scenario, where the Blazers take Olajuwon and the Rockets end up with Jordan, offers intriguing possibilities that could have dramatically altered the fortunes of both franchises and the trajectory of the NBA itself. Had the Blazers won the coin flip, it's highly likely they would have selected Hakeem Olajuwon. In 1984, the conventional wisdom in the NBA was that teams needed dominant centers to win championships. The Blazers had Clyde Drexler at shooting guard, making them less interested in Michael Jordan. But they were desperate for a franchise center to pair with Drexler. Olajuwon was considered a surefire prospect, and his presence would have instantly addressed Portland's needs in the front court. The immediate impact of this decision would have been monumental for Portland. Olajuwon, who went on to become one of the greatest centers in NBA history, would have transformed the Blazers into title contenders in the 1980s and 1990s. His defense, rebounding, and shot blocking ability, along with his developing offensive skills, would have made Portland a dominant force. With Olajuwon anchoring the defense and Drexler leading the offense, the Blazers would have had a formidable 1-2 punch that could have rivaled any team in the league. In reality, the Blazers struggled with injuries to Bowie and failed to capitalize on Drexler's prime, ultimately reaching the NBA Finals in 1990 and 1992, but falling short of winning a title. With Olajuwon in the lineup, it's possible Portland would have reached the finals multiple times, potentially winning championships in an era dominated by the Los Angeles Lakers, Boston Celtics, and later the Detroit Pistons and Chicago Bulls. In this alternate scenario, the Houston Rockets, picking second, would have selected Michael Jordan after missing out on the University of Houston star. The logic here is that the Rockets already had an All-Star and Rookie of the Year in Ralph Sampson at center, so they pair him with Jordan instead of a two towers approach with Sam Bowie. The thought of pairing Sampson, a 7'4" dominant big man, with Jordan is tantalizing. Jordan's athleticism, scoring ability, and defensive intensity would have complemented Sampson's size and skill, creating a dynamic duo capable of dominating the league. Jordan's arrival in Houston would have immediately elevated the Rockets into championship contention. While Jordan's scoring and leadership were pivotal to his success in Chicago, having a dominant big man like Sampson would have provided him with a strong interior presence, something he didn't have in his early years with the Bulls. The Rockets could have potentially seen success earlier than Jordan did in Chicago, especially if Sampson remained healthy. However, Sampson's real-life career was plagued by injuries, which could have limited the Rockets' potential despite Jordan's brilliance. Assuming Sampson remained healthy, Jordan's Rockets might have faced off against Olajuwon's Blazers in fierce playoff battles throughout the late 1980s and early 1990s, creating a new Western Conference rivalry that would have captured the NBA's attention. A Jordan-Sampson duo could have challenged the Lakers' dominance in the West, with both Houston and Portland vying for supremacy. If the Blazers had won the 1984 coin flip and drafted Olajuwon, while the Rockets took Jordan, the NBA landscape in the late 1980s and 90s would have been dramatically altered. First, the Chicago Bulls dynasty may have never existed. Without Jordan, the Bulls likely would have remained a middling team, especially if they draft Bowie in this scenario, and would definitely not have won the 6 championships they clinched with Jordan. This could have left the door open for other teams in the East, such as the Detroit Pistons, New York Knicks, to dominate the league during that era. Olajuwon's Blazers would have been a perennial contender, potentially winning multiple championships. Drexler and Olajuwon eventually teamed up in real life in Houston in 1995, leading the Rockets to their second consecutive title. In this alternate universe, that partnership could have formed much earlier in Portland, possibly resulting in a Blazers dynasty during the late 1980s. Meanwhile, the Rockets with Jordan would have redefined their identity. Instead of building around dominant big men like Olajuwon and Sampson, Houston would have centered their offense against the greatest shooting guard in NBA history. Jordan's legendary competitiveness and scoring ability would have made the Rockets a juggernaut in the West, and his influence on the game would have still been revolutionary. The key question would be whether Jordan, without Phil Jackson and the unique system of the Chicago Bulls, would have reached the same heights. Hakeem Olajuwon's legacy is cemented as one of the greatest centers in NBA history, leading the Houston Rockets to 2 championships in 1994 and 1995. In Portland, his legacy might have been even greater. The Blazers, with Olajuwon and Drexler, would have been a consistent championship threat, and Olajuwon could have added even more titles to his resume. He would still be remembered for his elite footwork, defense, and versatility, but his name might be even more synonymous with winning, given Portland's existing talent base. In this scenario, Olajuwon's place among the all-time greats would likely be even more secure, as he would have had the opportunity to contend for more championships earlier in his career, playing alongside a prime Clyde Drexler. Michael Jordan's legacy is already one of the most legendary in sports history. However, had he been drafted by Houston, his career might have taken a different path. Jordan's competitive fire would have undoubtedly driven the Rockets to success, but the team dynamic would have been different. Without the triangle offense or Phil Jackson's coaching, Jordan's path to greatness might have been altered, but his raw talent and will to win would still have made him a dominant force in the league. Jordan's hypothetical championships in Houston would have had him viewed as the savior of a different franchise. The Bulls dynasty might never have happened, but Jordan's brilliance would still have redefined basketball in Houston, perhaps creating a new legacy with a different set of teammates and rivals in a different conference. If the Blazers had won the 1984 coin flip and selected Hakeem Olajuwon while the Rockets took Michael Jordan, the history of the NBA would have been profoundly different. Portland might have built a dynasty around Olajuwon and Drexler, while Jordan's Rockets would have been a dominant force in the West. The course of basketball history, the rise of different teams, and the legacies of players like Jordan, Olajuwon, and Drexler would have dramatically shifted, potentially altering the balance of power in the NBA for decades. For more great what-ifs like this, make sure to follow and subscribe to the 4040 Vision podcast wherever you're listening or watching this content. You can find us on all the major social media platforms at 4040 Vision Pod.